Chairman, Mr. President, members of this great organization, you don't know how embarrassing it is to an old man who has only done his duty to have his funeral sermon preached and then not bury him. And I don't mind telling you that I enjoy it, in spite of the fact that I always get up before they get through. It's a pleasure indeed to be with you this evening. I'll never forget, in 1940, when I was trying to be re-elected to the United States Senate, when the association of all the unions in the country furnished the only financial support that I had. That was $8,800. And I won that primary campaign by 8,800 votes. And I didn't buy a vote. I spent all that money getting around over the state and talking to people. And the fellow who was defeated has been laying awake nights ever since, wondering how the hell it happened. I could tell him, but then there's no use wasting time on something that's already over. Now, I've been very, very much interested in the welfare of the country as a whole. And that welfare starts with the people who work. When I go into a town, when I was campaigning, and I wish I was young enough to do it again because I like it, I always went to see the people who work. When I stop at a hotel, I don't go to the $30 and $40 rooms because I couldn't afford it anyhow, but I always go down and see the cooks, waiters, and bartenders in that hotel because I know that they are the people who will understand what a man's trying to do for them when he's working in their interests. Now, the Machinists Union have always been friends of mine, and I hope they always will be. And I am not in a position now to give them any reason why they should feel badly about anything I do, no matter what it is. But talking about that veto of the Taft-Hartley bill, I wrote a veto message on that when it first came before me, which is still, and I'm bragging now, just as good as it was the day it was written. I don't very often make prophecies, because I don't believe in political prophets. They're usually no good because there were a lot of political prophets who got kind of stepped on in 1948. I told every union man in the United States just exactly what the Taft-Hartley bill would do. And if you ever come to the point where we can do anything to repeal that damn bill, read that veto message and use it as a foundation on which you make your fight. I don't very often call attention to things of that kind, but you read that veto message and you'll understand why it is necessary to keep that always in mind. All these things in all the states that have been anti-union since that bill was passed are based on that piece of national legislation. You know that as well as I do. And that was exactly what I was afraid of. Now, I don't think that the unions ought to be too powerful. I don't think anybody ought to be too powerful. When a fellow gets too big for his britches, he ought to have a come-down. And that's what everybody gets in this great free nation of ours when he gets too big for his britches. Sometimes they split and let him down before the people have to take care of him. But a lot of times that doesn't happen. Now, you called my good friend over here a politician. My friend, that's the most honorable title that any man can have. I'm a politician, and I'm proud of it. There never was a man who is now studied in history as a statesman who wasn't a politician. If he hadn't been a politician, he could never have been a statesman, because a politician is a man who understands government, and a statesman is a man who learns how to run government. I hope I'm going to live 10 or 15 years yet, and I don't want to be a statesman. I still want to be a politician. I'm going to raise hell when I think people are doing the wrong thing. You know where that epithet came from that they hollered at me when I got up, give them hell, Harry. It happened out in Seattle, Washington, up in a great big theater in Seattle. It'll hold about 7,500 people, and it was full. And this was in a time when I didn't have any standing in the country. I think my polls were down to 32% or 30% or something like that, and I didn't give a damn because I don't like posters anyhow. But at any rate, some old bird way up in the corner of the balcony, when I came out on the stage, said, "Give 'em hell, Larry." You could hear them all over the United States, you know. I've been greeted with that everywhere I go. I never intentionally gave anybody hell. In my campaigns, I always told the truth on the Republicans, and they caused us hell. That's how I feel. You know, you've paid me a very high compliment by asking me to come here and talk to you this evening. I feel most highly pleased and complimented that you would ask an old has-been to come back and talk to you again after, as far as my political career is concerned, everything's all over. But don't think it's over, for this I'll tell you. Whenever a campaign starts and the opposition commences to step on the neck of the people who work, you'll find this old man on the side of taking that foot off and kicking them behind them when they get through with it, too. I'm not saying that in a kidding way. It's the way I stand. I like to have things on an equality basis so that everybody under the aegis of the greatest republic in the history of the world can have his fair share of the good things of life. And that's all we want in government. Government is supposed to be neutral and to act for the welfare and benefit of those people who need it. Now, there are organizations, and I don't know what this is one of them, who can keep people in Washington to look out for their interests. And that's true of a great many other organizations. There's nothing in the world wrong with it because it's the right of petition. But in this 180 million people, or 150 or 60 million of them, who can't have any special representation in Washington. And there's only one man in the whole United States who can have that, who can make that representation for their welfare and benefit, and that's the President of the United States. And when he fails them, I'll tell you they're in a hell of a fix. That's all I've tried to do, is I've tried to do the right thing for all concerned. I haven't got anything against a man who's made a great success in life and who has plenty of money to get along with, but I also haven't anything against the man who's trying to do the same thing he did. And they ought to have the same opportunity to do it that he does. The main trouble with a lot of these birds, they climb the ladder on the back of the Democratic Party, and when they get there, they think they did it themselves and tell the Democratic Party to go to hell and join the Special Privilege Party, and I'm against them when they do that. You know what a pleasure it is for me to be here with you tonight. You and I talk the same language, or at least I hope the hell you do. At any rate, I want you to understand that my position, because I'm in the class of the so-called retired, and I'd like to know what retired means because it hasn't come to me yet. I work just as hard as I ever did. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I study the situation. I get a stack of mail about that high every day. I go through it, and I try to answer it all. And from 5:30 until 7:30, when the madam gives me breakfast, I go through some of that stuff, and then I go over to the library. And I want you all to come and see that place. It's an educational institution entirely to give you an idea of what the chief executive of this great United States should do. And when I get through, I'm going to have a history of every executive who's ever served in the White House, what he did and why he did it, and it'll be for your use and for the use of your youngsters who want to study the history of the government of the United States. Well, then, from 7:30, I get over to the library. That's where my office is. I raised $1,780,000, and the city of Independence gave me 13 acres to put the library on. It was built with that $1,780,000, and I turned over 4.5 million documents and all the presents I had received as President of the United States, about $350,000 worth, $21 million in all. You know what I got out of it? I got 3 rooms down there for office rent, free, as long as I live. If I live 10 years, why, the government will get $210,000 a year for that, and I think that's pretty good rent for 3 rooms, don't you? But I'm saying this to you so you know the facts. There have been more lies and misrepresentations told about me than any man alive, and I don't mind it. I don't give a damn what to say about me as long as they can't prove it.
But while you're here, if you have the time, why come down and look over the institution in which you have a very great interest, for you made great contributions to the construction of that institution down there, and we have tried to set a precedent which has been followed out here in Kansas just the other day, and I'm as happy as I can be that that was done. President Roosevelt started with his library at Hyde Park. Well, each one of them has been an improvement on the one before. And if we can get people to continue their interest in the welfare of the executive branch of the government, as they are interested in the Congress of the United States, which keeps its own records, and sometimes they have to edit them. They're not exactly as it happens, because I spent 10 years there, and I've edited my own speeches in the congressional records, so I know what it means. And the High Court, in that great mausoleum across from the Capitol in Washington, keeps track of everything that happens before that court. All I've been interested in is to be sure that the papers and those things that affect the presidency are available for future generations. You know, there's been a serious lack of interest in that. Millard Fillmore's son burned all these papers. Abraham Lincoln's son burned more than half his papers. Jefferson had the most orderly set, and there his grandnephew and grandniece who inherited them. Washington set the precedent of taking those papers and claiming them as his own. I did the same thing, but I turned mine back to the government, and some of the rest of them are going to do it now pretty soon. At any rate, Thomas Jefferson's papers, the Congress decided they'd take the official papers. Well, now I want to tell you something. Every paper a president touches, no matter if it's only a letter cussing out a critic who said some mean things about his daughter, are official papers. And they ought to be in the hands of the public. I hope that will continue. The other half of Jefferson's papers was left in the Library of Congress, and Princeton University is spending $250,000 or $300,000 getting those papers back together and publishing them in volumes so the youngsters can see them. Now, I hope you'll join me in an effort to see that not only the congressional records and the records of the high courts are available for future generations, but that the papers of the president become public property.
President Roosevelt, President Eisenhower, and myself have set an example in that line. President Hoover has built a library of his own out of Palo Alto, California, and his papers are out there, and they will be available when he passes on. He's not going to make them available until he makes them available by will. He's already told me that that's what he's going to do. He's a friend of mine. There's only one thing wrong with him, he's just a Republican.
Thank you, Mr. President. While I'm not at liberty to speak officially for the International Association of Machinists, I'm going to assume that liberty at this point and tell you, Harry S. Truman, that the Machinists International Union and the grand people that make up that union are so constituted that they don't forget old friends and are happy when their old friends do retire. And we would ask you to deliver our kindest, warmest greetings to your beloved family.
I'll sure do it. I want to say to you that last remark of mine was not intended to be any reflection on President Hoover. He's a great man, and I like him.
General Vice President Ramsey, I also wish to thank you for that very fine introductory speech that you made in behalf of our revered, great, and good friend.
My pleasure and honor.
And we will now say, for this section of the meeting, thank you and good night, and may God be with you in whatever you do this evening.